we're pleased to welcome to the Lily Main stage A Call for Touch, presented by Nazra Marie Peterson.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me out there? Beautiful. Okay. So where's your echo in my ear? So my name is Nazra Peterson, and I am the owner and founder of Heart Mind Holistic Training in Los Angeles. We are a mobile mindful wellness company. So what that means is that we come to you and provide a variety of mindful wellness services. So that includes everything from bodywork, energy healing. I have a very beautiful modality that blends both body and energy work along with integration coaching. So that means my sessions can get pretty emotional. So there's a lot of emotional trauma release in those sessions and really helping people to figure out what some of the underlying emotional root causes are behind a lot of the pain that they experience in their physical body. And so I'm going to demonstrate to you here in just a little bit kind of what the pain body behind the scenes of the physical body, what it looks like, how different emotions kind of manifest. So we also provide private one-on-one yoga, meditation, breath work, and also health coaching. So I wanted to talk to you ladies today about a call for touch. And what that means specifically is a call for touch is a call for love, right? So a lot of times when people are acting out in these weird ways where they push people away, maybe they're a little anxious, they're dismissive, they're avoidant, that's really, it's not love, but it's a call for love. And when it's a call for love, it's a call to be touched. And there's different ways in which we really need to be touched in our lives that we just tend to miss. And so it's really interesting, for those of you, whoever read the 5 Love Languages book? Okay, so most people are familiar with that. And what's actually very interesting is that years ago when I first took the 5 Love Languages quiz, I actually rated physical touch as last. And fast forward years later, I am actually living my best life and I'm touching people for a living. But it's in all of these other different ways. It's not just the physical, but it's the emotional aspects. So Virginia Satir was a psychotherapist and social worker back in the 50s and 60s. And she is the one who quoted that we need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day for growth. So when we really start to look at that, we start to notice maybe what are some of the missing touches in our lives, and how can we actually have those needs met in holistic healing ways? Because sometimes we call for touch in ways that are not holistic, that are not healing, and they're really just to avoid an emotion, but not to call in love. So I personally believe that there are 8 essential needs for touch. And I'm going to go through each of these briefly, but first I'm going to just sort of demonstrate to you kind of an analogy of what's going on when we're experiencing this neck pain, this back pain, upper, lower back, because we have different energy centers in the bodies. Who knows about chakras? Okay, so if you know about chakras, you know that different centers govern different organs or endocrine system and also different emotions. So I have a beautiful resources page on my website that I'm going to encourage you to go to. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and he's done his entire body of research on the connection between pain in the physical body and emotional pain. So he talks a lot about mental health, mental illness. So it's a really beautiful resource to add to your library. So I'm just going to encourage you to go there. So I brought this purse because this is what I explain to clients, right? So when people talk about massage, they just think about this pampering experience, right? That maybe they need it, maybe they don't need it, but we all need that, but we don't just need massage, what we actually need is touch. And that's a very important distinction to make, and you're gonna see what I mean in a moment. So this purse is going to represent the physical body, okay? And in it, purses like this in my home are actually quite dangerous because I go in and I just start adding stuff to it, and it gets heavy and it starts to dig into my shoulder, it starts to dig into certain places, and I have to switch shoulders. And so there's a lot of resources in here, but sometimes you don't need them. Like I have markers in here, I have all kinds of clips, tape, all kinds of stuff. But I also have things that I need, and sometimes when you don't need those things anymore, we don't discard it. Who has like 10 pens in their pocketbooks that don't even work, right? And you just don't discard them. So the body is kind of that way. When we don't actually discard these older emotions, we don't process them, we don't heal them, we think in just not talking about something that it's not impacting us, but that's not true. And so I'm gonna see in here what we have in the physical body, right, that's showing up for us. So first, we have some stubbornness. I'm a Taurus, so I carry this with me everywhere I go. So I have some stubbornness here. So that might kind of lead to a little bit of tightness over here, right? I was gonna put this on my back, but I'm Mike, so I can't do that, and I might get into my hair, so I'm not gonna do that. But in our upper back, that's representative of our heart chakra, actually. So we have some sadness here. So sometimes, a lot of times, we're feeling that upper back pain. That's some sadness that's just been unresolved. And so that's why I call my business Heart, Mind, Holistic Training. It's about understanding how the heart and mind actually impact the physical body, right? So we have an energy body, right? Then we have, what do we have here? Anger. I cannot go through LA traffic without some good old-fashioned anger. Got it right here, okay? So sometimes we go, it's so weird, like all of a sudden my leg hurts and I don't know what I did to it. Well, maybe you have some emotion stuck there that got triggered through a recent experience, and we just didn't realize that, so we've internalized it, or the body has internalized it, and now it's going to be a physical manifestation. Then we have anxiety. Anybody in here ever have trouble sleeping or calming their mind, right? Headaches, TMJ, we got some stuff going on here, right? Then we have some good old-fashioned insecurity. We're gonna put that right here. I must have banged my knee, but I don't remember banging my knee. Okay, well, there you go. And then I show up and I'm like, okay, I'm ready for your session. How are you doing? Can you guess the number one answer people give for how it is that they're doing? I'm fine. I'm fine. I just got a little, something right here, right? And so we make up this lie that says, oh, well, you know, once you turn 30, 35, then all of a sudden, one day you just bend over and your back goes out. Well, that's actually not true. And nothing was all of a sudden. So we need to actually be mindful of that. And so, does that kind of paint a picture for you a little bit of what's kind of going on in the body? Because sometimes when we don't remember doing something, don't blame your age. It's not your age. It's just, it's trauma. And it's not always the big Hollywood trauma that we see on TV. Trauma can come in many forms. And so I want to go over the essential needs for touch here. And the first one I'm going to touch on is the need for safety and protection. And so I want to talk about safety and protection in two different ways. I want to talk about internal safety. Did I get all the things off of me? Okay. I want to talk about internal protection and external protection, and also internal safety and external safety. So, for example, when we're in a hostile work environment, right, we're getting stimuli from our environment that it's not safe, right? So then we start to build up these internal protective mechanisms, right? Because now we have to protect ourselves, right? And I remember someone saying to me once, oh, you go to people's homes, is that safe? And I said, yeah, it's safe. I can protect myself. And I went, oh, that's interesting, because it's up to me to keep me safe and pick up information from my external environment as to whether or not I can keep myself safe, or if it is safe. Like if you go home to a loving partner or a family member or a roommate or a friend, right? There's external evidence that it's safe, so that internal protective mechanism actually goes away. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So this is one of the most important needs for touch that we all have. It starts from childhood. And anything that we don't resolve over time, it doesn't just go away. It's like a muscle memory. So when we dance and we have muscle memory, we work out, we have a muscle memory. And so whenever we need to activate that muscle again, or those muscles again, then our body remembers it. It's the same thing with emotions, whether they're good or whether they're bad. The next thing I want to talk to you about is a touch of love. So I was very selective when I chose these photos because I really wanted to paint the picture that we have many forms of love and we have many forms of touch. And what's so important is that we learn to diversify our portfolio to touch, right? We have a portfolio of touch, and we have this idea that if we're not in a romantic relationship, that we should be lonely, right? We don't need to be lonely. There's too many people in the world to be lonely, and yet people are. And it's because we don't know how to touch each other with love. That's that touch of support, that's that touch of connection. right? And the more that we can diversify our portfolio to touch, the more we can actually understand that not all love is romantic, not all touch is romantic, not all love is sexual, right? And once we start to be able to discern and delineate between these different forms of touch, the more clear we are and the more of our needs can actually be met. So the next one I want to talk to you about is a touch of innocence. So this piggybacks a little bit on the first one that we started with, which is diversifying that portfolio to touch. As children, we are very touchy. You know, we hold hands, we push each other on the swings, we play together, we're constantly touching each other. And think back to what I said about earlier about Virginia Satir's quote about needing these different, 12 hugs a day for growth, right? And people live with their families and maybe don't hug that much. And so that, it's important that we understand that we have an obligation morally. We have a moral obligation to reclaim our innocence to touch. Because we hit puberty, we hit adolescence, and we think all of a sudden, oh, well, now my innocence to touch now has to go away. It doesn't. That's a lie. It's a myth. And the more we actually start to realize that, the more we can start to integrate these different forms of touch so that we have more stable connection with people. This next one I definitely had to talk about at the Women's Expo. This is something that's been coming up on my mat, and I say my mat because I do massage and energy healing both on a mat and also on a table. And the things that I have been seeing over the past year and a half to the past 2 years are a slew of women who have so much trauma in their low back and their hips. And this comes from a very crucial emotion of abuse. And there's different forms of abuse, right? So not all forms of abuse, like I said, or like what we see on TV, but many people don't even know how to get their needs met through touch unless they're giving away sex, right? So when I say a call for touch, I'm not talking about a booty call, okay? I'm talking about a genuine call of what it is that you actually need in that moment. I have to tell you so strongly that we have a very warped sense of empowerment in this world that we've created. Friends with benefits is a myth. You need to hear that. Friends with benefits is a myth. It's friends without the benefits of love, without the benefit of support, without the benefits of partnership, without the benefits of connection. We've learned how to take this intimate act and completely learn to disconnect in that process. And it's become more about feeling good. These are our feeling chakras. These are our lower chakras that connect us to our pain body, right? To our ego. And we've learned how to disconnect the heart. I say sacred sexual touch, not from a religious perspective, because I'm not a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person who's very tuned and tapped in and understanding that we have information in our chakras. So each chakra has an affirmation, has affirmations that correlate with it. Sacred comes from the word sacral chakra, also comes from the word sacrum. This is our sacrum bone, the bottom of, like right in our low back. And this is what actually connects us to our feminine energy. These two chakras are our lower sexual chakras. So for men and women, we both have these two chakras, and this is a power that we use to connect and to transmit energy. So I actually started seeing it so much, I actually gave it a name. I started calling them STEs, okay? Sexually transmitted energy, sexually transmitted emotion. Because when you have a thought of someone and that, brings up all these feelings in you, it's not sex that does that, it's energy that does that. It's emotions that do that. You don't need a person to actually feel these emotions physically there. Sometimes it's just the thought of that person and what it brings up for you physically and physiologically. And so I really wanted to drive home the point that we don't have to give away something sacred of ourselves to receive such a low return on investment. We're not meant to be transactional. There's a reason why we have these names in the Latin. Sacrum means sacred bone, holy bone. It actually means that. That's where the word comes from. So just imagine we are basically teaching each other in those moments because we have such a huge culture of hookup culture that's so common, that what we're really communicating to each other in those moments is that love is not welcome here, it's not available here, it's not safe here, and it will not be reciprocated here. Those are the four main messages that we are communicating back and forth with each other. And so when we simply say, oh, well, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, okay, but let's not pretend like there's not a cost. And what I'm also seeing on the mat is not just very emotional, painstaking releases in these sessions, but the number of women who are coming to me with endometriosis, ovarian cyst, fibroids, PMDD, which is basically PMS on steroids, mood swings, angry, no period, intense period. Like, these are not normal things. They are common things. I mean, we want to believe that we're this culture, oh, well, it's just because we're sexually repressed. We're not a culture that's sexually repressed. We are a culture that is emotionally repressed and using sex as a cover-up. And we need to notice that. We need to know how to hold empathy for each other, not out of a place of judgment, right? I actually was calling for love, but I just had to call for the touch that I could get, because that was what was most accessible to me. And so we have a whole entire culture of women now trying to have sex like men, and we're not men. We're not men. What we're really saying is that I have a need for sex and I have a need for love, and I've not yet figured out how to have both of these needs met without getting hurt. That's what we're saying. So, that's all I have to say about that for right now. Because that brings me to my next point of healing touch. Here's the thing, we don't prioritize healing. We look at it as an event. Healing is not an event, it's a journey. Trauma are events that lead to the healing journey. Okay? So we'll put it off and we'll put it off and we'll put it off, and then we go to feel better, but we're not going to actually experience wholeness. That's why my business is called Heart Mind Holistic Training, not Heart Mind Halflistic Training, right? I'm not interested in just kind of working out a knot, and here I really want to see what is the underlying cause of this. Maybe it is because you look at your phone like this, but if you know that's bad and you keep doing it, emotionally, what's behind the scenes? Because we know that posture has something to do with our emotional state. There is no honor in self-neglect. And as much as your family needs you, they need you whole. Women are so used to putting themselves secondary, and there's a cost attached to that. And we'd be remiss to not notice it. You know, I've had people wait until they are in excruciating pain, and they go, okay, great, I feel better. And then I don't see them for 2 or 3 months, and they said, yeah, that worked for like 3 weeks. Well, are you still alive 3 weeks later? Are you still doing life over the past 3 weeks? Our body is the most used and yet simultaneously neglected human resource that we have. And we neglect it as though it's always going to be there. And it has an expiration date, but our quality of life, our quality of care, we need to stop blaming 35. It's not 35's fault, okay? It's what we haven't dealt with that's still stuck in the body. The next one I want to talk to you about is the touch of being fully received and fully expressed. So, interestingly enough, years ago, before I started speaking, I always loved to talk. I'm Southern, so we talk a lot. That's our thing. So, in my home, you weren't supposed to speak, because if you challenged an adult, you were bad, right? Even though you were just curious. And so I used to suffer a lot from throat infections. And I thought, what is that? That's so, like, why? I get it more than anybody else, because my words were not received. They weren't welcome. We didn't make room for the truth. We didn't make room for the uncomfortable conversations. And we need to make space for the uncomfortable conversations, because that's where the healing is. And the more we can actually start to make these connections and trace the genesis of the neck pain. Any people pleasers in the audience who have noticed some neck pain? You're always saying yes to stuff that you want to say no to, because if you don't, then you're going to feel, oh, here's some guilt. All right, now I got to feel bad because I didn't get to do everything. we can throw our bodies out of alignment. Our body records everything. And we're thinking that it's just this separate thing. It's not a separate thing. It's part of our life. It's a journey that we go on. And so when we're not seen, we're not heard, we start to withdraw. I have women who can't even lay on my mat without talking to me the whole time, which is great. We can have some great conversations, but sometimes that's an avoidance of really just being seen. Can I just look at you and just focus on you, and you don't have to entertain me? You don't have to shave your legs. You don't have to apologize for not shaving your legs first. I don't care. It's not a date. We can just sit here and I can actually just work on you and let these emotions just come out of you. Detox, like emotionally detox physically. And we need to understand and be able to trace the genesis of some of these conditions that we think are just supposed to be there. Oh yeah, well that's my knot. Well, you keep calling it yours, and guess what? It's gonna stick around. All right? So, it's important that we understand these touches and how when they're not met, then now we have more needs that aren't being met. And that's why I want to talk about a touch of empathy. I have people who on my table will have the most emotional releases ever, and it's one of the most humbling experiences that I've had as a healer and that I've had as a human being. But there are people who will cry in front of me who won't even cry in front of their own spouse, who won't cry in front of their own parent. We need to have witnesses to our life. And this does not have to be just a romantic scenario. Oh, well, that's your significant other. Well, you know what? Stop saying by default that other people in your life are insignificant, because they're not. Everybody has different capabilities to be able to hold space for you. Having a touch of empathy is about having a witness to your life, having a witness to your pain, having a witness to your healing, and having a witness to your joy. And we're missing it because we have to be strong for other people. And the more we can realize that our strength is in our vulnerability, there's a power to being a woman that's a strength of being a woman, and it's the softness of being a woman. And not getting awkward and uncomfortable when someone tears up in front of you. I've had people start crying in front of me. I'm like, I'm here for the tears. I got Kleenex in my purse. I'm Southern. We have some Kleenex around. I have Kleenex in my booth. Like, that's a moment to be able to purge and release, because what stays inside of you doesn't need to always be there. Not everything that's in here always needs to be in here. And the more we can start to realize that and hold space for one another and start to meet other people's needs for touch as well, we'd be surprised in how that comes back to us. And that's going to lead me back to my final essential need for touch, and that's the need to sometimes be untouched. There is so much trauma around people who have not had that need for boundary protection to be met in their lives. Not everyone deserves access to you. And not everyone deserves an explanation to why it is that they don't have access to you. Because ironically, that all starts to lead back to where we started. The need for safety and protection. So I'm going to leave you with this question today. What are your needs for touch? What essential needs that you have for touch are being met, are not being met? And how can you learn to have those needs met authentically, organically, in alignment with your highest, with what your soul needs, not just what your ego wants so that it can avoid an uncomfortable feeling, right? But what your soul truly needs. And don't ask it as a rhetorical. Give answers. And if you don't have answers, seek them out, find them. They're there. They're there within you. They're there within the conversations of the people next to you, the people that you live with, the people that you haven't seen in 5 years, the people that you haven't seen in 10 years. We need to learn how to diversify our portfolio to touch and to connect with one another. we can heal. We have the innate ability to heal ourselves. And the more we can do that, the more we can learn to answer a call for touch, and we can receive our calls for touch. And we can heal that one touch at a time. Thank you.